Welcome to the Brickworks Podcast, an extension of the studio based here in Burnham-on-sea. Our aim for this podcast is to have a completely open forum for conversation. This could be about art, life, mental health, or even how the world is burning down around us right now. Whether you're listening to this whilst on a run or relaxing at home, we hope you enjoy our mild-mannered rambles. Thank you. I don't know why, but I've definitely fallen in love with podcasting now. It's really strange because I used to hate talking and now I love talking, especially with interesting people, you know? It's half the battle, finding interesting people, but...
I mean, I think there are quite a few interesting people. Finding interesting people who are also really focused and driven and, aren't, borderline personalities to the extreme, especially in the arts, becomes a bit more of a struggle kind of pursuit. I mean, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with people who are in this whatever situation they're in. It's just difficult to work with certain personality types who often drift towards creative expressions. If you've had a bunch of traumas and things, or whatever personal stories have led you to need to make art. I mean, because I don't think, I said it I think there's a big difference between people who make art for relaxation or things and other people who make art because they're completely compulsive or, think they have something to say, whatever you want to call it. There's different motivating factors there. And it matters to how it plays out when you work with those people, to what those other motivating factors are.
Yeah, and I think I think that definitely changes the dynamic, especially if you're like collaborating with people, if that makes sense. Like when you're collaborating with somebody, it's similar. It's interesting you say that, somebody who needs to make it compared to somebody who almost enjoys making it. It's kind of this completely different process. And it's when you collaborate with those people, you can really see like the different processes and the way that they see the world. And it's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, I mean, everyone sees the world. I was just listening to Radio 4. I love Radio 4. So I was actually kind of grateful because I was in the car in that traffic for coming down here, and there was I got to listen to the entirety of Women's Hour.
Okay.
And it was the first time, and they were all happy because Women's Hour just got an extra 15 minutes on Radio 4. So they were all like, yes, an extra, we get the full hour now. But one of the things that was on before Women's Hour was talking about inherent biases, and I think that it was the author of the book Think Fast, Think Slow or something. I can't think that's the name of the book.
I've heard of something very similar.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous book, and he was talking about noise, and the example he used which is these are empirical, measured evidence-based examples where you have insurance and you have underwriters for big insurance policies around like concerts or building construction stuff. We're talking about multi-million, and he would ask the executives of the insurance companies, what is your estimate of the difference between your underwriter's estimate?
Okay.
So the general consensus was an appropriate estimate for the difference between two people who are specifically trained. This is all they do. Is we think as managers it's going to be around 10%. If you ask 3 different underwriters, they're going to be about 10% off. And the reality is it's like 50 to 60%. So people are just and this goes back to like if you're applying for grants or anything like that, just where you are in the pile.
Yeah.
And who happens to read that grant.
Yeah.
It's that's the luck part.
Yeah.
That's the luck part. You don't get to control, do they need to go to the toilet while they're reading your grant and they're holding it in because they feel too busy, or is it the first grant they read that day? These are the things that you have absolutely no control over. And you have to accept that an element of luck comes into all of this stuff because it is all just people making decisions to the best of their ability, to the best of their knowledge. And then there's other problems if you start shifting that to algorithms and things, because then you don't take into account the personal stuff and the kind of personal attributes, and there's other issues there then.
There is other issues there, especially when you start like diving into this the AI side of things, and it's quite crazy. But I think that's the thing, especially is like it's so subjective. like near enough everything in the art world is subjective rather than objective. Even grant applications, as we've sort of discussed previously before coming on this podcast, it is completely subjective. So there's this almost this element of, yeah, there's no consistency there, especially when it's another human being reading that, and you can't really micromanage that.
So I'm a big believer in going towards things that are objective. So, my work, my painting work, my artwork focuses a lot on finding what my mom used to call common ground, of what do we agree upon?
Yeah.
Not what we everyone can say what we disagree upon. That's easy. But what do we, in a foundational way too, not in a, I think this, you think this. It's more so like, what is the nature of existence? What is the nature of reality? Can we agree that, our perceptions are flawed? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's huge amounts of evidence that our perceptions are flawed. Can we agree that we're all born and we all die? Okay. Can we agree that we all need cuddles and food and sustenance and sex? Yes, we can agree that. These are let's stay focused on those things, because when you start going to different cultures and start going around and seeing that everybody really sees things differently, the example they used in Radio 4 today, because when I listen to things, it's right on my head. This is what I've just been listening to. So they were talking about Kit Kats and how Kit Kats have had a huge explosion in Japan.
Okay.
And the reason they've had a huge explosion in Japan has nothing to do with them as chocolate or a candy bar. It's because they resemble an ancient Japanese symbol of religion. And the student body, when they're going for test results, have been using Kit Kats as prayer bars in front of idols that they're leaving as an offering to their deities.
Interesting.
So it's like, and basically it's like, can you take yourself out of your own cultural subjectivism to see things as objects that other people might perceive differently? And that's the objective side of like, right, it's not just this thing that we think it is, which is a chocolate bar. It's a shape as well. It's a color as well. It's an object in its own right.
Yeah.
That will have its own identity in other spaces and other traditions.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Yeah, that's the objective truth is we are ants on a highway.
Yeah. I've heard you use that before.
Have you? Yeah. I think it's an important one though.
Okay.
Yeah, like a lot of people, this goes back to the horrible failings in our own perception and how much we overestimate how we perceive the world to be, how the world actually is.
Yeah.
But like so much evidence around.
Yeah.
Mountains and mountains of evidence around how poor human perception is, and
totally.
And then you get so mad when someone else doesn't see it the same way as you, and you're like,
I know.
Of course they don't. Like, of course they shouldn't.
I know. Absolutely, and I think that's part of the fun of being a human, though, isn't it? Like in a weird way, it's. I don't enjoy arguments. I'm not a confrontational person, but people seem to like to argue about a lot of things rather than agreeing on stuff. There's especially right now, I don't know if yourself would agree, but it feels crazy how argumentative the world actually feels right now.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say to that is, in times of crisis, everything is amplified. Things that might be minor otherwise feel major because we can't help but be in the world with everybody else who's in the world. So, COVID hit everybody. Different people have had different experiences with it, but it's kind of a beautiful and unique experience on Earth in two or three ways. But one, it's a shared trauma across the planet, which everybody is aware of, which is really unusual, because if you look at the Spanish flu, it was, that's the closest equivalent in many ways, but that was isolated in terms of nationality and the people there. They didn't have the communication to see that this was happening everywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
And then some of the other things around that is it's the first time humans have tried to take on nature. When you really think about, this is the first time we've tried to use governments and medicine because COVID is a completely natural occurring death. It's pneumonia. I mean, it's a different type. It's like,
But it fits within that category.
It does. Yeah. It's a respiratory death, which has been happening to humans forever. But this is the first time we're like, we can try to do something about this. Now, that's kind of an amazing thing. And I think the fallout from COVID and the lockdowns and the preventative measures of like, right, we'll see what happens in the next 5 years will be a big determiner for how people react to the next pandemic, because there will be another one too in 100 years from now. You know, it's like these are naturally systematic things. But if COVID, the fallout from COVID leads to massive trauma for the next 30 years, I think people are going to be hesitant in 100 years to then try to stop it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, those are interesting things of like, you know, we overestimate how much what we do or what we won't do we can't see, you know, the road to hell is lined with good intentions. We can't possibly foresee what the long-standing consequences of our actions will be. And we can do things with the best intentions. And all you can really do though is say, right, do I have the right, good action, good intention, good knowledge behind it? That's the best you can hope for is, right, I've got as much knowledge as I can get. I'm doing the best actions I can think of to do. And I'm trying to make good for people. And then, you know, sometimes things don't go that's never going to be enough, because you know, everything has consequences.
I couldn't agree more. And it's really interesting. I never thought of COVID as like this idea of the human race trying to take on nature. Actually, you saying that has made me really sort of deeper think about it, in the sense of it is us taking on a natural death, and actually trying to stop these natural deaths in many ways. It's quite a monumental thing, actually. And especially for people, you know, in my lifetime, it's unlikely that I'll see another pandemic.
Fingers crossed.
I'd like to think so.
That's not playing the percentages, if you think that.
That's very true, yeah. Yeah, very true.
You know?
And I think that's like, I'm a big believer in learning from mistakes, whatever mistakes they might be. We learn from our failures. I'd like to think we'd learn from the failures that we have from this, not to, you know, barrel down to the political landscape and all that stuff, because I feel like I speak about it on a daily basis. I don't know about yourself.
Too much. No, I hear you.
But I think from a human perspective, taking away governments as a mainframe, but from a human perspective, what are we learning from this? And for me, it's very much a case of, I'm learning to appreciate time with others. Like, to simplify everything, I'm appreciating the time that I have with people now. And it's like,
I'm the opposite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm learning to appreciate. I mean, I've always been, and the term is ambivert, but because of lockdown, I had no space to myself, because I had my kids and I was stuck in the house.
Yeah.
So I got no personal space for almost 6-8 months.
Yeah.
So what I appreciate and what I'm like consistent, and I was actually kind of happy to be sitting in the car alone driving down here today. What I appreciate and what I need is time to myself, because that is something I have to like schedule into my diary of like Doug alone time. Doug is on his own. Don't mess with, you know, setting up times where I'm running and exercising. And these are things I used to do a lot, but when you have kids, it's like,
it's a complete life changer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you find that being in that alone time, that almost introverted space, actually helps you to develop like new perspectives and new ways of looking maybe at your artwork or what you're doing with KeepArtIt?
I would say it means that I can see it from that a little bit more the highway side.
Yeah.
So gives me that a little bit of distance from whatever I'm doing to assess it a little bit more. So the term the guy uses is reduce the noise. So reduce whatever other things are distracting me from seeing it as what it is.
Yeah.
So one of the things I do a lot, and I still do this, and I actually did it last night, and it's one of my best alone times, is I take really hot baths in the dark. And it's almost like sensory deprivation.
I was going to say,
it's right on the edge.
Yeah.
It's hotter than sensory deprivation tanks would be, because you know those are usually
about body temperature,
and you just lay in it, and then you're floating in other things. But
which sounds awesome. I would definitely want to try one of those at some point.
Through all of this as well, I also still carve out times in the morning where, even if my kids are about, I meditate, and they actually both have to wait for breakfast until I've done it if I'm the one up with them, and they've come to accept that of like, I'm not going to get food until Daddy's done. You know, and it's like, you know, because otherwise, once you're in, you're in. So finding times to sit, reflect. There's a lot of information and around meditation and how that grounding practice can mean that you just it's are your intentions and your actions aligned? The information side, that takes work. You have to read books, you have to talk to people, you have to understand what's going on. But
you have to gain the knowledge as such to learn the information.
But your own ability to kind of make decisions and say, right, this was the intention, this was the action. Are those aligned?
Yeah.
That is a really powerful tool to find the next phase and to find allies and to share goodness and truth with the world in any way, shape, or form. Try to make the world a bit better.
Yeah. I totally agree.
So,
and it's interesting because I think a lot of people have taken up meditation recently. I've played with it for years, but only like the last year have I really tried to make it a serious thing that I try to do on a daily basis. And by taking it much more serious, even though it's not a serious thing to do, I suppose, and so depending on who you ask, it depends.
The effort of non-effort.
Yeah, very much so. And I found that for me, it's like, although, I'm very much appreciative of the time I get to spend with people now, much more, but I'm also appreciative of that half an hour to an hour where I'm just alone and I'm in my own thoughts and I'm trying to process whatever the day has got or the day before has given me and all of these things. And it's, for me as an artist, it's definitely changed my approach and made me almost more retrospective in my approach to my work and being able to look from it from the outside perspective and take myself away from it.
You do run the risk of overthinking your work then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I overthink everything I do.
I have works that, when you get into working in the arts professionally, you better have a few bags of tricks. So you look at actors we'll use actors as an example. One of my favorite examples is Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And you look at how he got into acting and what his process was before he became successful, which was, he basically worked as a waiter for 15, 20 years in LA until he got his break with, I think it was 10 Things I Hate About You or one of those.
Yeah.
How to Lose a Man. I think it's one of those, rom-coms, which is where he made his start. But he knew from those 15 years that he actually had more in his bag of tricks than society wanted to allow him to use. And if you hear from him, he turned down a £50 million role.
I just saw that the other day, yeah.
Do projects that he believed in and knew he had the chops to do, but wouldn't have got if he kept doing rom-coms.
Yeah.
So having that tool bag of, you either get, I kind of am a believer that in the arts, you either make it because someone picks you when you're young, and then you're and I feel sometimes those people struggle to keep it up as a lifetime because how do you innovate when you're already famous? It's very difficult.
Yeah, when you're already in that spotlight.
Well, also because people have an expectation of you then.
Yeah.
So you don't have the time and the space to develop new tricks. So if you get picked when you're out of art school, for example, we'll use visual arts, we'll go back to that. And then, a gallery picks you up, say Saatchi picks you up, and you're 20 years old, you're selling work for £100,000.
Yeah.
There's only down to go from there.
Yeah, you're almost peaking already, yeah.
It's those people who are like, uni was the best time in my life. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. It's like, that's because the rest of your life is another 60 to 80 years.
The real development.
Yeah. So, and then, so how do you develop those bags of tricks? I mean, for me, I have kind of 3 different methodologies for work that keep me in tune with different aspects of what it takes to stay inspired and stay creative and stay productive. One of my favorite quotes is, craft is what you lean on when inspiration fails.
Nice. Yeah. Like making.
The actual, and also just like treating it as, this isn't an artwork. This is something I make. This is a craft. This is something I'm
involved in.
It's like, it's not the same.
It's a different approach, definitely. Yeah, 100% agree.
So these things all come up when you've been doing it for a long time, you kind of had to carve your own reality. You're either picked by someone else to exist in their space, which a lot of people benefit from. I would have loved that when I was 20 for.
And I think that's the dream.
I would have loved that when I was 20. Some gallery just like was like, I like your work. We'll start selling loads of it. We'll put you on a plane to Beijing for the biennial, whatever. That would have been great. That's what I wanted when I was 20. That's what I wanted. Now, did I get that? No.
No.
Which, which is fine.
Which arguably has developed you into the person you are in some way. It's a really interesting dynamic because I'm fresh from the uni system pretty much. I'm only 26, almost at 25. And there is definitely this collective goal where when you're a uni student, whether it's fine art, keeping it within the visual art spectrum, that you want to make it straight out of uni. You want somebody to buy your work and even in the photography world, which is a little bit different. It's all good. A little bit different. It's all right. We can cuddle now. So yeah, I was going to say, we gave each other a big cuddle and I was like, oh my God, this is nice. Anyways, but there's almost this collective homing that you get at uni to be like, I've got to make it. Somebody's got to pick me up. I've got to make an agency. But I agree with you in some ways there, because I'm actually glad that didn't happen for me. And I'm only a few years out, and I feel like I've developed much more from even just moving into here and starting the Brickworks. It's like, for me as a creative, my eyes are in a different perspective than what they would have been if it went the other way. And it's almost like the case of, what is the correct decision? There's no such thing as the correct decision. There's only what you feel is right in the moment. And it's keeping sort of true to that, I found.
This is what I said to you. This is the last thing I said to you is It's really important to remember there's no, one of the hardest things about the arts is that there's no clear path.
No.
There's no trackway of, you go work at a job, you get promoted, then you do the next job that's in that job, then you go into management. There's no hierarchy to the arts that way.
No.
So you kind of just have to make your own version of that somehow. You have to make your own reality. Part of creativity is creating the reality around your gravitation and your sphere and your people. And how do you then grow that sphere and share it with people and translate the language that how do you translate your visual language into a form and an expression that people will not just understand but connect to and want to be part of. And that's the game, that's the pursuit, and there's no rushing it either. Some messages are more complicated than others. Some things that people want to say are more out there. I think I was talking to you about this before. I wear suit and tie. So my work, when a lot of artists see it, looks like someone with a suit and tie made it, and they recoil from it. They're like, oh, that's too organized for me. Okay,
each their own.
That's fun, but that's being comfortable with who I am, and that takes time and focused attention and an understanding that I'm not doing it wrong just because people aren't responding to it. On a financial level potentially.
Totally.
So
I think that's half the battle of being an artist, isn't it? It's that whatever you need, staying true to what you want to do is such a key thing, because we're so in tuned with following the herd, that whole mentality. And I hate to use the term being a wolf because it's so fucking overused at this point.
Being a wolf?
Yeah, like being a wolf, leader of the pack, like that kind of thing. But it's true when you think about it. It's a case of you have to stay true to whatever it is you want to do. Like, stay true to the art that you want to make. Eventually something will happen. I'm a big believer in, if you do something for long enough and consistently, something will fucking happen. And it will come, something will happen, whether it'll sell or not, whatever. I think a lot of people lose that passion to keep going in some ways.
Yeah, there's no easy fix for persistence.
No.
It's really actually, if you look at fine art as an example and things like that, really the people who make it, a lot of them don't make it until they're in their 50s or 60s. When I say make it, I mean they're in the place they want to be, making the work they want to make.
Totally.
On the scale they want to make it, and fully functioning as a professional who has a standing and is in museums, whatever you want to call it, however your vision of success looks. Those people tend to be older. I mean, there's quite a few professions that just take longer. My wife is an architect, and do you know what the Young Architect Award, which is,
I can't say I know about it.
It's a young architect is classed as below 50.
Interesting.
Because it's a profession that just takes... Because if you look at the scale of art, I mean, in the scale of architecture, you know, you're talking about a building which is going to cost at least minimum, a house is £250,000, and that's going to be the smallest project someone could win an award for. Is a single house. That's the smallest level. So if you're talking about something where it's, you know, a skyscraper or a library or a school, you know, the amount of time it takes to develop enough reputation, develop enough skills, and develop enough people around you and a team around you to execute a project of that scale to that quality to then win an award for it. You know, the minimum time that the architecture board, RABA, has said that that's going to take is 50. It's going to be like, that probably won't happen until you're in your mid 40s, because it's like, it takes a while. You know, and art's not so far off of that, because, you know, you're talking about things that often exist in the public space. If you're talking about big sculptures, you know, those are often 30, 40,000 pound commissions. You need people who can work on metal. You need a workshop. You need, you know, you need a manager. You need
the facilities.
You need all of that stuff. And you can't just give that to a 20-year-old and expect a good product.
No.
So it takes a while to develop that reputation. And you know, a lot of people are against gatekeepers because they're keeping, you know, they're also in some ways making sure that quality stays up. You know, you look at Facebook and Twitter, which tried for years to have no gatekeepers. It doesn't work. You need someone there saying, look, this person probably can do what they say they can do. This person's got the idea, but they don't have the team. This person doesn't have the idea, but they do have the you know, you need assessors, you need people who can do audits. You know, you need these people who can hold people accountable for delivering on what they said they're going to do. Again, this comes back to why I'm a bit of an outlier in the arts, because I believe in those things. You know, I don't...
And you can hear it. You can hear the passion that you have for it. And I think that definitely transpires into what you're doing with KeepArtIt. You know, I came up and saw it a few months ago now.
It's a bit different now.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. But, you know, the vision that you guys have for KeepArtIt, and I can hear the passion in your voice. Do you think that's your new future? That's like the new Doug is going down this road of, you know, not to use lack of a better term, but facilitator in some capacities.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that people keep bringing me in to do is that. I think in terms of monetarily, so for work, then yes, as a facilitator, as a producer, as somebody who puts other people in a position to be successful. I think for work, in terms of like the thing that pays my bills and helps me with a mortgage, stuff like that. Yes. The answer is yes. For the near to medium, maybe even the far future. Because, you know, one thing I learned from COVID is you can have all the plans you want, and then, you know, the universe throws you a fucking pandemic. So KeepArtIt, curveball. You know, I love KeepArtIt. It was a rallying cry from me, because I had a really difficult March to really September last year. It was, you know, I had a particularly bad circumstance for multiple reasons, you know. I don't want to get into it too much, but one of the things that got me through it was art, creativity. KeepArtIt it was a battle cry almost of like, just gotta keep ArtIt. You know, like, and it goes back to the persistence thing that we talked about earlier, which is like, you just keep doing it, and you just keep doing it. There's a book I've been reading, because I'm trying to transition a little bit more into being a business person so that I can facilitate more artists as the business side for them. And it's called like the lean startup. And the way that person talks about it is validated learning, which is you do things and you try to look at them objectively as to, you know, what is working, what isn't working. And, you know, don't use what he calls vanity metrics, which is like, oh, we had this many people come and this many. It's you try real metrics of, you know, are people connecting to this? Are they really drinking are they really subscribing to it? Are they coming into it properly? And, you know, me transitioning into being more of a business person, for lack of a better term, is a weird transition. It's not one I expected to have to make. But I can also see the benefit of making it. And, you know, I guess if you looked back at my history, there were indicators for it that I was going that way already. And again, it's like, but being accepting that that's part of who I am. And being okay with, I'm not this, you know, flitty artist who goes off and just, you know, lives in a trailer and
Yeah.
That's not who I am. I like soft beds and hot showers, and
and warm baths.
I'm not, that's not who I am. And that's fine too. And if I can enable a bunch of people who might be on a different wavelength than me to find an audience for their form of expression, give voice to that, then if my voice is maybe not heard until I'm in my 60s or 70s, that's fine. I do my art for me. And if other people want it, it's there. If they don't, then
it's all good.
It's all good. I'm not, you can't hold people, you can't get angry at people because they don't connect with your work, or else you'd be angry at everybody all the time.
Absolutely. And I think it's an interesting transition as an artist going into this sort of more managerial businessman, air quotations, role. It's kind of natural in a strange way. I think I found, because in a similar circumstance, much smaller scale, I'm in a similar perspective, and I found it very natural, the transition of moving into this more managerial role as an artist, because I think when especially if you're a professional artist on certain levels, you're managing your career. You're not just making art, as you know, and this is sort of people listening and watching. It's like, you're not just making art. There's thousands of other fucking things that go into being an artist. Is my SEO on my website right? Am I marketing? All of these other questions. And I think the base of being, a businessman is part of being an artist, especially if you're trying to make it as a professional artist.
In the modern world, yeah. I mean, I got a little bit arguably pushed into it by the volume of failure I've had since I got to Bristol. I've just been put in a position where I didn't, it was like, do you want to be a clerk at Tesco's or do you want to set up your own company? And it's like, in those terms, it's like, of course, I'm not a clerk at Tesco's. That's not who I am. No,
you've got a vision within yourself of what you want.
Yeah. So, but the amount of, if you look at, there was a period so I moved to Bristol in 2016, and the amount of rejection I've had is, it's been professionally, socially, it's the best move I've ever made. I have more friends who I trust. I have more people who are close to me. I have a family now. I've got people who will support me in a way that I've never had in my life. And I would actually trade all of the fiscal failure or career-based failure for those people every time. Yeah. Because I value those relationships because of my past and my history of not having them for so long. Now that I have them, I'm like, this is amazing.
I want to keep
having friends is a new experience for me. In many respects, because of my childhood and things, which everyone has their stories. Of course. But the transition into being a business person was basically like, seriously, no one else likes my work enough to give me a show in Bristol at a gallery. There's like 8 galleries, and I'm like, I come to them and say, hey, look, this is piece that would sell in your space, and they're like, nah. I'm like, okay, fine. I guess I have to do it myself. Yeah. It's an interesting thing to be forced into something like that, and then have I embraced it? Do I embrace it? I don't know. I still don't necessarily love it all the time. It's work. It's not the thing I wanted to be doing. I just wanted to make paintings and sell them. That's the core of where I started.
Do you think by it being work though, it's making you appreciate being more of an artist and having that time to be an artist, to create paint much on a different level?
So strangely enough, actually, I'm in some ways I'm more distant from my art than I used to be because I'm so busy now with the business.
Interesting.
I have an assistant who often does my work for me. Okay. So this is it's coming into evolution of work. I have 2 people who I work with, Nathan and Charlotte. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Shout out to those guys.
Shout out to Nathan and Charlotte. And they come in and they've helped me execute a few pieces, and it's like, my work, especially the rainbow pieces, those are ones I don't need my hand on. No. It's right on the edge of design. It's sculpture. It's, it's not necessarily.
It's in a really interesting gray area.
I don't need to be the one who does it to get my vision executed.
It's almost a manufacturing process, and it's the same. You would outsource that if if it was a product.
Well, I'm too busy. Like I said, it just comes back to the fact that my priority has to be to the people who are depending on me in the business now. Of course. And people are turning to me. People are depending on me. People and not just my kids and my family, but also like Charlotte and Nathan, hey, you know, like they're also like, you know,
dependent.
They need me to be successful. They need me to make the business work. And there's a element there. I mean, I think maybe for me, I do appreciate more when I have the chance to paint. I think on Thursday last week, I had the chance to paint for the first time. I had like a block of 2 hours where I could paint.
Nice.
Because there's a student film. I'll just tell you, there's a student film coming out, and they contacted me a while ago and said, hey, we're doing a student film about a murderer who is an artist, and he murders his sitters and then paints their bodies. And they said, would you do us a portrait for our film? And
Nice.
this must have been 9 months ago. They contacted me, and then lockdown happened, and it was blah, blah. But I basically, they're like, so we're shooting on Wednesday this week.
Yeah.
They're like, so is the painting ready? I'm like, sure, I'll do it on Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's just like, basically Thursday I had like a 3-hour block, right?
Yeah.
You know, I did a piece, and it's like, that was really fun. Yeah. You know, that was like, also it's a little bit out of what people know me for. You know, I have a whole series of portraits that I've been working on for a long time that I love making, and I love engaging with the people who sit with me. Portraits of Poets, it'll come out eventually.
I look forward to seeing it, man. I look forward to it.
I'll do your portrait sometime. You'll come sit for me. Yeah,
honestly,
come sit for me. We'll just put it in the diary. That's like, it's called Portraits of Poets, but it's starting to grow more into artists because I used to be really involved in the poetry. Anyway, but so Thursday I really was reveling in paint. Mm-hmm. You know, I came home, my hands were covered in paint, my trousers were covered in paint. Yeah. You know, that's where I like to be. Do I have that freedom to be there as much as I used to? No, I do not. But, you know, I look at Jeff Koons, I look at Damien Hirst, I look at, you know, Dali. And, you know, some people are like, oh, you're talking about the biggest artists in the world. I'm like, well, yeah.
Because that's where you want to be.
That's where I want to be. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not stupid ambitious. But
don't get me started on...
and I don't need to be those guys. I want to be me.
Yeah.
But they have access to audience. They have access to resource. And they have a voice. Which are 3 things I want, you know. So I want to have the resources. I want to make more ambitious pieces because, you know, like I said, my work explores universal truth, those big rainbow pieces. If you don't know, my work is called it started off being called The Rules. Yeah. Now it's actually evolved to not be called The Rules anymore.
I was going to ask you what The Rules is, because obviously I've never had a chance to sit down and have a chat with you, because last time that we met, it was up in Bristol, and there was so much crazy stuff going on, and didn't want to get in the way. But I specifically remember looking at your work and seeing the word The Rules all the time. So what was or is The Rules?
So The Rules is an expression of what I kind of think life means and is like.
Okay.
It's twofold. One is there's a big belief I have that when you have to work within constraints, often the most creativity comes out of that. So when I was in Japan for a long time working, I couldn't access paints, but they had these beautiful ink brushes that they use for calligraphy there and for writing kanji. Yeah. I found that, but they only come in 3 colors. Black, gray, and orange. Yeah. So I found for 18 months, I only worked in black, gray, and orange. And then I remember there was a point when I'd been doing it for like maybe 14 months, and I was like, I just want some blue. You know, and it was like, but the arbitrariness of those 3 colors developed a whole new body of work around those 3 colors. Now, the rules, as they apply to the body of work that most people know me for, are based off the equinox. So there's equal parts black and white. Yep. It started off in 2017. I've been working on it for a few years now. And then basically I was like, well, you have, you know, birth on one side, you have death on the other. And some people believe one color is one and one color is the other. I think that's an open discussion. Okay. You know, are you going into the darkness or are you going into the light? Are you coming from the darkness or are you coming from the light? Doesn't actually matter really. No. But and then it's the journey. So in yogic theory, you know, I mentioned to you I've been doing yoga for a long time. My mom's a teacher. I've taught for almost a decade. And in yoga you have the chakras, which is the 7 colors. So which is the colors of the rainbow. Now if you look at the kind of quantum physics of light and how all that works, you know, light is really a weird thing. It's way weirder than we actually kind of day-to-day think about, acknowledge. So splitting the light up into the spectrum basically means that, you know, that's the journey. That's arguably the purpose of life, is to see light and give it definition. Because if there's no living creatures there, it stays a wave.
Yeah.
But if there are living creatures there, it becomes a particle.
Yeah.
Now, the arrogance of humans is that we think we're the only ones who define things.
Yeah.
But hermit crabs and bacteria have as much input into the nature of our reality as we do. Like the squirrel in the woods, the old expression, if a tree falls in the wood, does anyone hear it? I'm like, yeah, the squirrels and the birds.
Yeah.
They are living things that also are defining what reality is.
Yeah.
And if all humans were to disappear, there would still be living things defining what reality is.
There'd still be those organisms.
There's this arrogance to humans of like, oh, we're the ones who define. It's like, no, it's all living things. Anything that's alive defines reality.
Yeah.
And that actually that's what's really weird about that is that's not theory. No. That's how matter works.
Yeah, that's how the universe, how we as human. Yeah.
That's the core of what matter is. We're mostly space, light, and energy. Like huge amounts of space. If you look at like when you really think about it, that like most of what you're looking at, everything solid, not solid, is mostly empty space.
Yeah.
It's like wait, but it feels solid. Yeah. It's like it's really not.
Honestly,
it's really not. No. It's not at all. It's held together by energy and by base perception only. Because we all agree that this should be solid. And so the rules is a framework that I use to express those ideas about universality, universal truth, and I'm starting to evolve beyond it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's when I was listening to you talk about that then, I was like, fuck, this is a deep body of work. Like, when you start going into physics, somebody's really going into it, like, and matter and space.
I didn't want that to be the case. It just was like...
You just ran with it.
That's what came out,
Yeah, totally. And I think that's part of the process, though, is to allow the mind, especially in a creative spectrum, to just pick up the ball and run with it, see where you go. Like, I don't know if it's the same in other spectrums of art, but in photography we use going down the rabbit hole. That's quite a common terminology, and it's whenever I work with other artists or even students now doing guest lectures, I'm like, don't be afraid of those rabbit holes. Like, they will lead somewhere to something that might change your perception of what you're making, or even just give you information on how to develop it further. And it's, I love when I hear people talk about their projects and how deep they are. It's like, oh, this is sick.
What I will say about the rabbit hole is one of the reasons I moved to Bristol, one of the reasons I don't think London or New York or Hong Kong will ever be centers of the art until they become much cheaper, is in those cities you can't afford to go down the rabbit hole.
No.
It's too risky.
Yeah, if you fuck up,
you don't get paid. You're out. That's it. There's not enough leeway to really develop new ideas that you don't know are going to sell.
And you can't have those failures.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that I've really taken from
unless
this.
You're very elite to start off with, which has other problems because those people tend to have less to say about universal truth because they haven't lived it.
No, because they've been in a different perspective.
They've been in a bubble, and it's like, that's fine. I'm not judging that. I'm just, you have to be in the shit to understand
the shit.
How things smell.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And I think that's so your work's developing now. So in what sense? Because obviously it's such a deep project that you're working on with the rules, but now it's sort of transitioning.
I've gotten to built objects and sculptures.
Okay.
So the first really big commission I had for a rules piece, I've sold quite a few. I've always sold work relatively easy compared to other artists I talked to. Even from a very early start, when I didn't start painting till I was 20. And it was partly due to an injury that I kind of picked it up. But I've always sold. Everything I've made, I've always been able to sell regularly. But my first really big sale came through a commission, and the commission person asked me to do something slightly different that was outside what I would have normally said was the rules. Now, I could have been like, nope, not doing it that way because it's not in the rules. But instead I said, yeah, sure. And I took it as an opportunity to be like, right, that's an interesting direction. That was a collaboration with that person in Austria who ordered a sculpture from me. Yeah. They said they wanted this. I said, yeah, I can do that. It's going to cost this much. It'll take this long. They said, sure. Executed it. By all accounts, they're very happy with the product. And I'm like, that's an interesting new take that I don't necessarily know if I would have done that if I hadn't been pushed by capitalism to do it.
And then it almost goes back to that idea that you were saying about constraints, by having a constraint from the commission saying that they wanted something outside of the rules actually helped you develop this other perspective and this new approach potentially.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
There's a few new things coming in that line too that are, again, these things, some of these, the sculptures in particular, especially if there's not any impetus to make them. If it's for a commission, I'll bang it out.
Yeah.
They still take a month or two.
Of course.
But I will do it consistently because I know that there's a buyer waiting for it.
Yeah.
If it's something I'm just doing for myself, which a lot of my work is, or if something that I'm like, well, I'd like to try that idea and I don't have a specific buyer for it, then it takes longer because I get sidetracked doing this I come on a podcast and like today, if I had a commission due, I'd be like, no, sorry.
Yeah, I've got to do this.
I've got a commission due. We'll
Totally.
reschedule it because I've got to pay the bills. It's like you asked me about, am I going to keep doing KeepArtIt? Hopefully, I plan to. But I don't need to. We're starting to get the legal side organized to make it a employee-owned company. That's the end goal.
Yeah,
is to be kind of like Aardman and John Lewis, where everybody who's there working gets a share in the company. Everybody's a stakeholder.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen this year? Hopefully, maybe it might take till next year. Legal stuff takes ages, and it's like a huge learning curve for me to be like doing it the right way. As a publicly traded company, you have to declare all your shares. Like, oh my god, I can't do that. So these things take time to develop and manifest and grow. But you go out, you plant a bunch of seeds, and you put them in the best conditions you can to grow, and then you just have to wait and see. You can't control. If so, you say you plant turnips, carrots, and potatoes. And one of those three is going to work because of the weather. But you can't control the weather. No. All you can control is, did you plant the right things for different eventualities?
At the right times. Yeah, totally. And I think that's really interesting perspective to have on business. You know what I mean? Because normally it's depending on the business, it's quite a forceful approach. It's like, we are going to make this now. But like, it sounds very like excuse me if I'm wrong, but quite a patient approach to a new sort of idea as such. Because I think sometimes you need to be a bit more patient. Though.
I mean, yeah,
you may not feel it by the sounds of things. But
my wife is, well, it's not just my wife, me too. I'm impatient. I want to be successful. I've been doing this for 15 years and I'm still not anywhere near the resource I'd like to be able to support people and deliver my vision as well. Like,
of course,
I'm getting closer. The longer I do it, more things are starting to happen that are what I wanted to happen in the time frame I wanted them to happen. But it still continues to be a massive learning curve, and it's like that you just keep learning and keep growing and then even you can learn your whole life and then you come into your 60s and it all falls to shit. Yeah. And it's that, I want to be emotionally prepared. I spent, I'm going to spend 40 years on KeepArtIt. Then I come into being, 60 and it just falls apart because of other things that are completely outside of my control again. So these are all like, it's, you do your best. Again, it comes back to, the best, get the most information you can. Yeah. Be as well informed as you can, and there's no excuse for not being well informed anymore, really, because the internet and things.
Yeah, we have computers in our pockets.
And if if you have a particular worldview around specific information, read multiple sources. If you don't believe one source, read six. There's like
I so agree with you.
If you don't like if you don't like what major media, there's loads of stuff out there that proof check. It's not that hard to be like, right, is this person, putting references up to reputable things like scientists and
something fell over.
I think it was your mouse.
Uh-oh.
is there a mouse in the house?
Oh, there must be. Everyone run.
I have no shame about killing mice.
How do we get that?
Because the mouse just fell.
Don't kill it. I need that mouse.
You need that mouse.
Yeah, don't kill that one.
My wife, this is the first year that I was able to seal up the house so we didn't have any mice in the...
Oh, was it bad at one point?
Well, because when we moved in, we had a bunch of mice. And then she's like, you're on a killing spree. Because there was a 48-hour period where I think I killed like 18 of them.
Fucking hell.
Traps. Yeah.
That's almost, you're basically causing a genocide at that point. Like.
That whole family. Yeah. The thing is, I love mice and I actually love rats, but I don't I wouldn't let a human come steal my food, shit on my floor, and gnaw on electric wiring either.
No.
You know what I mean? That's as far as I'm concerned, that's unacceptable behavior.
Yeah.
I
love your like zero tolerance.
I'm like, no.
At least I know if I ever come around your house not to do those 3 things, then we're sound.
Oh my God.
Otherwise, I'm going to end up under a broom.
Under a large human trap. Here's my bear trap.
Yeah.
You know, like
I've prepared this for you.
There's a Nutella sandwich on there. You know?
Don't say that. So like, because we're running up on the hour, but
sorry.
No, of course, I love it. But so, what's for yourself? What are you doing? What can you see for your future as an artist and as in KeepArtIt?
Right. So KeepArtIt's happening now at the Galleries Bristol, which is a shopping center. We are working with a few partners to do a lot of cool stuff. You know, there's other people in there doing cool creative things. We're starting to expand beyond the galleries in our scope as well. Looking for other homes in factories. We're starting to collaborate with some of the other people doing it in Bristol as well. Like, you know, I think I mentioned this to you, but like, you know, there's Bricks, there's Art Club. There's quite a few people doing, you know, it's a good idea. It's a good time to do it. So there's other people doing it too. I'm not, you know, pretending to be, you know, the only one doing this. Arguably, I'm the only one doing it as a business. Yeah. But that's a different discussion. But KeepArtIt's got some cool shit coming. So if you haven't seen it, we've got a gallery at the central location, which is also my studio. So if you want to come visit, please do.
Honestly, it's a cool space.
Yeah, it is a cool space. We're setting up a media studio similar to what we're sitting in here to do.
Well, if you ever need someone to podcast, Doug, like I'm just.
Well, hey, you know, coming up to visit, we definitely do.
I'm just saying, man. I've got some free time.
We got a space to get free time. So you might see Jacob up at our studio as well. But we're moving in towards content creation and things like that. But we also have a festival coming up, which is only in the loosest terms a festival. It's mostly like a week of workshops and performances at the galleries, which we're waiting to hear back from funding. But we have good fingers crossed that we'll get it for it, and that'll be in like late July at the galleries. And if we get it, we'll start promoting it and talking about it a bit more. But you know, I've learned not to start planning for the money you're gonna get. I never mentally spend anything until it's actually there, and it's like, oh, okay, now it's there. I can start making these things. Trying to get some. I really want to. So one of the things I am passionate about with KeepArtIt, and this will be the thing that I strongly believe there's a lack of quality art content. On major media channels. You know, I look at BBC, I look at Sky Art, I look at all these things, and I'm just like, this is fucking rubbish. It's just not good. No, it's not engaging. I mean, and there's the last time really good art content was made was the 80s. Now that's interesting because I'm reading The Shock of the New right now, which was written. What's his name? He's that really famous art critic from the anyway, but. Basically, that was the last really interesting art show that was made, I could almost argue. Now, the reason that's the last one is in his foreword. He believed that and a lot of people do, that all fine art television had already been made. So we've covered everything. We've covered all the important stuff already.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, for me as a 30-year-old, everything they've covered was made before I was born.
Yeah. So it's new. It's completely new to you. So
there's been 40 years of no fine art programming. Now you're telling me there haven't been new art movements in the last 40 years that deserve a... Yeah. You know, when's the last time you saw a Picasso-like film where it's just Picasso in a studio painting? There are artists out there right now who deserve a film about them. You know, Imagine did it a bit, but he wasn't really focused, and it was just one guy kind of in his own road. He wasn't doing it in like a wholesale way as a business. And again, it's like this is something I'm passionate about because I want to see more fine art programming on air. I think our generation deserves it. I think our generation needs it, and our voice deserves to be heard. I want to see a bunch of 40-year-olds and what their studios look like, what their process is like. I want to go talk to people who are making virtual art and see what their and I just think it's not being done. And if it is being done, it's not being done in a mass market way. No, it's being done in such an exclusive, it's an art program. Let's just release it on our YouTube. we're not going to promote it to.
Or we're going to show it in this little cinema.
Yeah, it's like no. This stuff is mainstream.
I think that would be really cool. Like, if you made like a series, like a docu-series.
That's sick. So right now I'm just trying to get funding together to get equipment to start doing this stuff because I don't I've got a bunch of art stuff. I've got loads of paint. I got loads of canvas.
Yeah.
But I
just haven't got the cameras.
Well, I don't have cameras. I don't have mics. I don't have lights. All these things that you need to make these things, especially in the modern. I don't have editing equipment. I know people who do. You have stuff. I might call you in to be like, hey, can I use your camera? This is Skillshare. Hey, yeah, please.
100%.
But it's like that is something I am passionate about, not as an artist, but as a producer. As a producer, it's like no. I want to see fine art content, and I'm starting to put money into that for me personally as well. From KeepArtIt and from my own personal finance, I'm like starting to develop that and be like, no, I'm going to spend money on that happening because that is something I want to see. That's also something I think is a sustainable life for me as work. It's not just something I want to see because I want to see. It's also something that's like, that's a place where so as in the arts, you need to find the thing that you're both passionate about doing and you can make money from. Now, some people that comes really easily because they paint pet portraits. I mean, I'm nothing against pet portraits, but if you paint pet portraits or even people portraits, and that's the thing that turns you on about being an artist. If you're a pop artist, and that's like, I have a very good friend, Dave Sharp, and he's a pop artist, and he gets excited by celebrity portraits. That excites him. He's not just doing that for
money. He
just does it because that's what he loves. And in some way, that's what everybody needs to find, is that thing that they love doing, which also is the thing that they can make money from. For me, maybe it's my fine art. I'm going to do that for me. Hopefully, long term, it's something that people will believe in enough as a concept to support financially and want in their house.
Totally.
Strangely enough, almost everybody who's bought a piece from me or has a piece from me, they put it at the foot of their bed. It's like I've had at least 8 buyers tell me they put their piece. It's the first thing they see when they wake up. Now maybe it's because it's grounding or meditative or soft or quiet or abstract. So you see, I mean, I don't overanalyze that, but that is there's enough people who have said to me that they've put my piece as the first thing they see when they wake up. That I'm like, that's a thing. That's something.
There's obviously a correlation there of some kind.
Something's there about how my work interacts with people in those in-between states of waking and sleeping.
Yeah, which is the moment where we just define our days and we define our thinking for those days. Yeah. Which is really interesting. And that must be quite a compliment to get in some ways.
Yeah, it's an honor to be able to share something that allows people to feel like they function better in their day. But also it makes sense for the work because, the closest we get to death in our living life is REM sleep. Yeah. That is the daily connection.
We're not that far from it.
That's you're right on the edge of dead at that. Your brain is dead for most intensive purposes for like 3 to 5 hours a night. And it's like that's actually why you need sleep. Yeah, is that connection to the universal unconscious. And it's there's all those there's loads of techniques around getting into that. The subconscious versus the unconscious versus the conscious, but like my work is an attempt to bridge those three in a visual form, which that's pretty ambitious.
It's very ambitious, but I think you got to be ambitious to approach those subjects. If you're not, then there's no real need to. It's really interesting. But, so that's where you're going with your artwork now.
I'm feeling it out. I'm still I paint what feels right. I'm starting to, like I said, I'm moving more towards, now that I have more space to build, I'm moving more towards sculptures because I think they're fun. They're fun to make. I like working with wood. I like repurposing found materials. So, just going into, you take stuff, you find it, it's been thrown away, it's broken, whatever, and you paint it and you assemble it in a new lease of life. So I'm a big believer in upcycling, recycling, and changing things. And sculptures, you can't really do that for paintings per se, but you can do that for unique art objects.
Totally.
That's something I really enjoy, that process of reimagining what something could be.
Awesome, man. So to everyone who's listening or watching, where can they find you on social medias and stuff like that?
Right. So the company is
promo time.
Let's do it. So the company is called KeepArtIt, and we're on all of the socials as KeepArtIt. We're website's keepartit.org. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You know, those are the main ones.
Everything under
we're
the
still
sun.
trying to get a handle of our socials.
Yeah.
Bear with us.
Honestly, I feel the same.
For me personally as an artist, it's Douglas Karson with a K. My website's dougkarson.com. On socials, I'm DAKArtist, which is, and the main social I use is really Instagram. So if
Awesome.
you check out DAKArtist, you'll see some
Awesome,
of the
man.
stuff I'm up to.
I'll make sure I'll link it all down below as well. You know, the typical YouTube thing, like go down to the
Yeah,
description.
check out
So
the links.
go
Oh,
there,
yeah,
hit that like button.
Check this one right here.
Got to be a content creator, man. But no, I appreciate you coming on, man. I know this has been a long time coming. I wanted to get you on 6 months ago, but obviously we couldn't do it then. And I'm so glad that we got a chance to sit down and just like...
It's actually interesting. I think the stuff that's happening now is more likely to happen than the stuff we would have talked about 6 months ago. So 6 months ago, I would have talked to you and everything I would have said would have not happened.
Yeah. I feel like that's every 6 months.
Yeah. Like, you know, this is, you know, it's like you got to go with the flow. You know, it's like, all right, what does it need to do now? I mean, I kept KeepArtIt really vague. You know, the mission of KeepArtIt is to share art with as many people as possible.
When I read that, I was like, bro.
What the hell does that mean?
I was
It's
like,
like,
where are you
whatever
going
we
with
need
this?
it to mean at this today.
We can put it on a tag somewhere. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
totally
like,
get you.
keep it vague, and then you got a lot of freedom to move.
Absolutely, man. So to everyone listening or watching, make sure you go check out Doug's work. Honestly, it's incredible. And make sure you check out KeepArtIt in the galleries in Bristol. So you got a show on at the moment, haven't you, I think?
Yeah, we've got a group show in there because it's a
Awesome.
gallery space. We got a few new pieces coming up, so a lot of my work is going to shift down, thankfully, because I get tired of looking at my own stuff. But it's up there.
That's why none of mine's here.
But yeah, thanks so much. It's been really
Of
ace
course, man.
to connect personally, and good to give you a hug.
Yes, I know. It's amazing.
Hug day.
Honestly,
go
I
hug
might-
your friends. You can do it today. You're legally allowed.
Shall we just go hug people right now?
Yeah.
I'm so down. Let's just go walk around and hug some people.
Yeah, we're gonna go hug some people.
We're going to go. So take care, guys. And yeah, make sure you check out Doug's stuff. So peace.